Hello again. Hope all is going great. Today we're going to talk about some interesting history facts. You may have heard of this stuff. I have not. I found it quite interesting. So here we go and begin. I hope all is well. I'd like to continue to upload more frequently since I'm getting more subscribers. Thank you for keeping a hold of this subscription and so forth. With my channel, I like to do how-to with drawings, or I'm going into more history stuff, so maybe gaming or history in general. So let's begin. In 1926, Arctic explorer Peter Freuchen was trapped under an avalanche while on an expedition. He escaped from death by fashioning a shiv of his own feces and amputating his foot. Here's his photo. Quite miraculous. In ancient Egypt, servants were smeared with honey to attract flies away from the pharaoh. The Roman Catholics in Bulgaria founded a secret society in 1740 called the Order of the Pug. New members had to wear dog collars and scratch at the door to get in. The first fax was sent while people were still traveling the Oregon Trail. I wonder if people on the Oregon Trail could send a fax. That would be quite different history. Henry VIII of England had people who were called grooms of stool, whose job it has to wipe his bottom. During his reign, he had 4 such people, all of whom were knighted. That has to be a crappy job. Before Abraham Lincoln became a politician, he was a champion wrestler. With more than 300 bouts under his belt, Lincoln only lost 1 match in his career and was inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in 1992. As you can see in this photo, he was quite tall and scary. He would have been amazing in WWE format. Until the early 20th century in Mongolia, criminals could be locked up in a wooden box as punishment, sometimes left to die of starvation. In the Victorian era, it was popular for people to photograph relatives after they had died, often placing them in lifelike poses. I think I may do a deep dive into this matter. They actually had their relatives with their eyes open as well. In old photographs with Victorian photos, you can see everybody is blurred except the dead body, so you can tell which one is dead, or a really good actor, I don't know, or actress. In Renaissance France, a woman could take her husband to court if he was impotent. Let me do it quick. He couldn't have a sexual erection, then he would go to court. Harsh. In 1923, jockey Frank Hayes won a race at Belmont Park in New York despite being dead. He suffered a heart attack mid-race, but his body stayed in the saddle until his horse crossed the line for a 20-1 outsider victory. It's a deadpan stare of his. All British tanks since 1945 have included equipment to make tea. I'm curious if Americans have hot cocoa ready for them. Hitler, Mussolini, and Stalin were all nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. One of history's most successful pirates was a Chinese prostitute named Xin Shi. I apologize if I butchered that. She commanded a fleet of over 1,500 ships and 80,000 sailors. She wasn't a seaman, she was a sea woman. I apologize if I butcher this. This gentleman, Tsushima Yamashi, was in Hiroshima when the first atom bomb was dropped. He then traveled home to Nagasaki the day after the second atomic bomb was dropped. He then traveled home to Nagasaki the day before the second atom bomb was dropped. He survived both and lived to 93 years old. Roman Emperor Gaius made one of his favorite horses a senator. You can see his horse is very happy right there. On his deathbed, Voyager was asked to renounce Satan by visiting a priest. He replied, "This is no time to make new friends." On his deathbed, Voltaire was asked to renounce Satan by visiting a priest. He replied, "This is no time to be making new enemies." The town of Salem, New Jersey, once held a trial against tomatoes in 1820. Because of the widespread belief that they were poisonous. The case ended after Colonel Robert Gibson Johnson ate a basket of tomatoes without ill consequences. While Pope Gregory IX was in power, he declared that cats were associated with devil worship and had them exterminated across Europe. It's believed that the disappearance of cats helped rats proliferate and spread the bubonic plague. Way to go, Pope. Potatoes were only introduced in Ireland in the late 1500s, after being discovered by Spanish conquistadors. You know what I'm saying. Janet Reagan became the first female member of Congress in America in 1916, 4 years before women were given the right to vote. Despite popular rumors, Elvis Presley had severe constipation that plagued him throughout his life. He actually died while pooping because of a condition called megacolon. In 1942, the US Army fired 1,400 anti-aircraft rounds during what was thought to be a Japanese air raid over LA County. It turned out to be a false alarm. 5 civilians died due to this result. In 1493, Columbus thought he saw mermaids. They were not as pretty as they were depicted, he said, for somehow, in the face they looked like men. It's suspected that he saw a manatee. Good job, Meg, from Family Guy. At the height of his popularity, Charlie Chaplin entered a Charlie Chaplin lookalike comparison in San Francisco. He came in 20th place. Always be yourself, is what I say. Chickens may have been first domesticated by humans for cockfighting, not for food. History's shortest war was between England and Xenophobia. It lasted only 38 minutes. That's an episode on Netflix. During the 1800s in the US, it was considered a cruel and unusual punishment to feed lobster to prisoners and convicts. 14 years before the Titanic sank, Morgan Robertson wrote the novel Brutality. It was about a large unsinkable ship, Titan, interesting nowadays, hitting an iceberg in the northern Atlantic. Both the Titanic and the fictional Titan did not have enough lifeboats for the thousands of passengers on board. Thomas Edison once electrocuted an elephant to death on Coney Island. Over 1,000 people came to watch her die while Edison recorded it on video, or film. Before the 19th century, dentures were commonly made from teeth pulled from the mouths of dead soldiers. I wonder if you get a Medal of Honor for your teeth. In 1998, 1,200 bones from some 10,000 bodies were found in the basement of Ben Franklin's house. The bodies were used in the study of human anatomy, scholars believe, or he was a mass murderer, who knows. Between the 11th and 19th centuries, Buddhist monks in northern Japan practiced a kind of medication called, I'll try to pronounce this, Sukanishimadusa, in which they would mummify themselves alive by slowly weaning themselves off food and water, before eventually starving to death. 7 of the 10 deadliest wars in human history have been in China. The Taiping Rebellion alone had twice as many deaths than World War I. That is a lot of people. Between 1900 and 1920, tug of war was an Olympic event. I sort of wish they would bring that back in the state of that one TV show. During the Middle Ages, it was believed that sperm produced from the left testicle produced girls. To ensure having a son, men would have it removed. During the Middle Ages, it was believed that the left testicle was made to make daughters. To ensure having a son, they would have it removed. I'm curious how their interaction was once it was removed and they did have a son. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died hours apart on the same day, July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of American independence. During World War II, a Pennsylvania dentist convinced President Roosevelt to bomb Japan with timed explosives attached to thousands of bats. But after some of the armed bats were accidentally released and destroyed their testing facility, the bat bomb project was scrapped. Too bad they didn't have Batman around. The tallest married couple ever recorded was Anne Swan, 7'11", and Martin Van Buren Bates, 7'9". Swan also gave birth to a 22-pound baby. I wonder how he felt since he was shorter in the relationship. The smallest Major League Baseball player of all time was 3'7", Eddie Gaedel. He walked in only plate appearances. President William Henry Harrison served the shortest term in U.S. history. He died of a cold just 2 months into his presidency. Doctors gave him traditional treatments like leeches, opium, and snakeweed, which contributed to his death. Way to go, science, back in the day. In 1945, a bomb launched by Japan landed in Oregon. It was happened upon by a woman and 5 children who died when it exploded. They were the only World War II casualties on U.S. soil after America entered the war. Well, they made a stamp in history, I must say. In 1929, researchers at Princeton University turned a living cat into a telephone. The name Nazi was taken from pre-existing slang from a backward peasant. The term was popularized by Hitler's opponents and was rarely used by Nazis themselves. Serial killer Ted Bundy once saved a young child from drowning and also received a commencement from the Seattle Police Department for chasing down a purse snatcher. I guess that wasn't his state of mind in that time frame. Instead of saying cheese, Victorians said prunes when their picture was about to be taken. The Civil War began on a farm of William McLean, who then moved more than 100 miles away to escape the fighting, only to have the war end inside his new house at Appomattox. One of the history's longest wars likely lasted for 335 years and was between the Netherlands and the Isles of Sicily. Not a single person was killed. Romans used urine as mouthwash. Urine contains ammonia, which is one of the best natural cleaning agents on the planet. The current 50-star US flag was designed by a 17-year-old Robert Heft for a school project. He received a B-. Wasn't that beautiful? Terrible job, Robert. A passenger who lived through the traumatic fire and sinking of a ship in 1871 faces fears and boarded the Titanic in 1912. He sank with the ship, sad. In 1838, Edgar Allan Poe wrote the narrative of author Gordon Pym of the Nautic, a book about 4 crewmen on a whaling ship who ended up stranded and having to draw lots to see who would be eaten. The lot landed on a cabin boy named Richard Parker. 46 years later, a yacht named Mignota, bound for Sydney, Australia, capsized en route from London. The 3 crewmen then killed and ate their cabin boy named Richard Parker. A would-be assassin threw a grenade at George W. Bush in 2005. But it didn't explode. People were buried alive so often in the 19th century that a safety coffin was invented so the dead would have the ability to alert those above ground to make sure they're still alive. They had a string attached to a bell outside their coffin, and they would check on it every couple days, or couple hours. I'd have to look into that. I've read about that before. Quite scary. That's why I want to be cremated. Civil War soldiers on both sides were offered bounties upon enlisted, causing some men to enlist and escape again and again in order to collect multiple bounties. One man collected 32 before he was finally caught. Lord Byron kept a pet bear in his dorm room while studying at Cambridge University. He was probably unbearable of the situation. Well, there are some interesting facts. This is part 1. I have more interesting facts to go upon. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.